Hosted by you/TruthInfinite8073. I've been dating my fiancé for 4 years and have been engaged for 7 months. We were trying to plan a wedding for roughly fall next year, but now I'm not so sure. For background, her childhood was terrible and abusive, to put it mildly. Her parents are raging narcissists, and she was the scapegoat for her 2 brothers. She was abused and thrown out the moment she turned 18. However, she was a great student and hard worker, so with some scholarships and a part-time job, she has built a great career and is quite independent. The problem is that she still has contact with her family. None of them have changed. Well, actually something has changed. They have become more financially dependent on her over the years. They enjoy slowly creeping back into her life and emotionally blackmailing her for support or whatever she can do. They're not pleasant about it either. They're rude, smug, and generally enjoy being a nuisance. And my fiancé can't say no, no matter the horrible things they say or how they outright try to intimidate her openly. I've always known her family history and have always supported her through the issues with them, but in the last year or so, they've become far more brazen and asinine. They come over to our house more often and make messes all around the place. Her mother acts like she's the freaking stepmother from Cinderella. Her dad helps himself to all my drinks and empties out half the fridge. Her brothers stop by occasionally to act as mouthpieces for their parents. They practically trash the place and leave us to clean the mess. And where is my fiancé in all this? Quietly standing in the corner, practically shaking. I'm no fool here, there is legitimate trauma. She has a need to feel loved by them and hopes they will appreciate her. Before one of you noble commenters states the obvious, she's been in therapy for this for years. I've tried to establish boundaries. For nearly 2 years, I've been trying to push these clowns away. But this is her house she purchased, and no matter my financial or other contributions, she won't let me have a say on who comes into her house. She's been beaten down mentally and emotionally by them for so long. She recently told me that she wants to earn their approval, that they were right about her, and that she needs to be better for them. I've had too many emotional conversations with tears and begging to count, hoping she will take the steps to get better. But she's an adult. I can't force her to do anything. I love her, but I can't help but feel so resentful of what she's doing. It's agonizing watching someone you love, someone who you know deserves so much better, openly destroy themselves for people like her family. It's been painful watching her cry herself to sleep one too many nights because of them. I've tried too many times to help her get out of their clutches, but I have to think of the future. What happens when we have kids? What happens when she is postpartum and invites them over? What happens if there is a medical emergency for either of us? What if our finances get tight and they still demand money? This is the in-law family from hell, and I won't be able to avoid them. Tomorrow, I'm going to tell her that I want to delay the wedding until firm boundaries are established. If she resents it, I will walk away. I can't do it anymore. I refuse to watch this any further. Update 1. The night after I made the first post, I decided that I was going to have a heart-to-heart with my fiancé about her family. However, she came back from work the next day early, and since I was already off that day, I initiated the talk a little sooner than I had planned. Essentially, I told her that this arrangement was not sustainable. I did not feel comfortable marrying her due to how much involvement her family has in her life, and I certainly did not feel comfortable bringing a child into this world with them. I didn't want to tell her to go no contact with them, but I did request strict limitations on their visits and what they can do around the house. I also suggested couples therapy before marriage. She wasn't happy. She stared angrily at me while I spoke, then started yelling at me when I finished. She told me I don't understand their dynamic and that it worked for her. I told her that they're abusive users who will bleed her dry and that I have never seen them show any decency to her. She responded that she just had to work harder for them to appreciate her. I basically yelled at her that a parent's child shouldn't have to beg and plead and work to be loved. I finally told her that she needs to set limits with them, or I will walk away. She was livid, and since I was living in her house, I was kicked out. So, for the past few days, I have been staying in a hotel, and my stuff has been taken out and put into storage. Frankly, it's been great. I am going to stay with family for a few weeks around mid-July, and after that, I'm going to go house hunting for myself. I have spent the last couple of days relaxing, catching up on movies and video games I haven't had time for, and coming back from work to a quiet room without her family tearing the place apart. Yesterday, however, things came to a head. We have basically been no contact since she booted me out, but I know every Saturday her family loves to spend the afternoon over, and she uses me as a shield from their abuse. In a very petty move, I simply kept my phone muted all day and played video games. I knew she would call for help with her family, and at this point, pure resentment was kicking in. I wanted nothing to do with her issues. By the end of the night, she had sent me over a dozen texts and finally 2 frantic voicemails begging me to come home. I decided to go over to check on her. Long story short, she was sobbing in the living room, and when I came to talk to her, she was practically crushing my back, hugging me and sobbing. I gave her time to cool off and asked what happened. Long story short, her parents and brother came over to demand money from her and say horrible things to her. She wanted me to come over to help, but I was ignoring her. When she tried to have one of her friends help out and everyone basically said, hell no, it all started clicking for her. She kicked her family out, but not before they said some utterly vile things to her that I won't repeat. She kept apologizing to me and begged me to come home. I told her plainly that I had started to build up heavy resentment towards her for some time. While I loved her and understood it was trauma and not her being outright abusive, there were major issues that would need to be addressed if we were to move forward. 1. She sells the house and moves. We make roughly the same amount of money, so we will buy a house together. I am a grown man, and I will not live in a house where I have no equal agency. 2. Her family will never step foot in it. They will never come over. They will be treated very threateningly by me if they try to come in. 3. She gets a new therapist, and we start premarital counseling. 4. She never makes me interact with her family. And 5. We will go low contact with her family right now, but make no mistake, we are working towards full no contact on her end. I told her I love her, that we have been together for a while and have beautiful memories together, and that I know she is suffering from abuse. However, these conditions are non-negotiable. If she has a problem with any of them, then we have to go our separate ways. She told me she's realized for a while now that her family is toxic and unhealthy, and she wants to make changes. She has accepted my terms, but some of these will take a while to see through. For now, I'm going to stay in the hotel until I head back to stay with my family. She is welcome to come over, but I have made it clear that her house is not somewhere I want to go. Her and I are both off tomorrow, so we will spend the day here and maybe go out. This is obviously not over yet, but I might not post anything else until mid-August or so. Update 2. Despite all intentions of not updating until much later, with the hopes of an improved relationship with my fiancé and her establishing boundaries with her toxic family, we are now broken up. Essentially, what happened was that after last weekend, when I left her to deal with her family herself, she seemed to finally grasp the situation and was open to changes, including boundaries and a possible move. We spent Monday and Tuesday hanging out in my hotel until I went back to my family for a couple of weeks. The other night, she was being very vague with texting when she was originally supposed to come over. She came much later than expected, and I knew something was up. She basically unloaded on me, saying I was abusive, controlling, overly demanding, and unsupportive. It took me 5 seconds to figure out she was repeating verbatim some sort of rehearsed speech from her parents. To be honest, I was so agitated at this point that, despite making a huge gamble on her, I decided to be blunt about it. I asked her if her family told her to say this. She said they suggested it to her but that she came up with it herself. I don't believe that. I asked her to explain in detail what I did. She said I was living like a parasite off her. I reminded her that I'm paying 50-50 for her mortgage, 50-50 for utilities and groceries as well. I have my own car that I pay for and a job that makes almost as much as hers, unlike her parents who demand payments weekly and raid the kitchen on weekends. I told her to try again with something better. She looked flustered and said I was trying to isolate her. I smirked like a prick and told her that I have always supported her many friendships, which she has destroyed on her own because no one wants to deal with her family or be used as a shield like me. I practically demanded to know why she is so hellbent on destroying her life for these people. She shouted that I don't understand her family and that she's just trying to earn their love back, and she was basically ranting at that point. It's staggering to see up close how deeply abuse can affect someone. I've ventured into a few subreddits to get perspectives, and if you're familiar with them, you'll see how people who are victims of abuse by their own family can be so utterly broken that they truly believe they are the problem and deserve the abuse. That's how she was. She was utterly broken and didn't want help. She didn't want to get better, she just wanted to get worse. The realization hit me like a truck. I really did feel like a fool for trying, even if it was what I was supposed to do. She was practically berserk at this point, and I was just mentally exhausted and needed her to leave before someone called the police. She finally left, but I had a few concerned neighbors check on me. Some of her friends are aware of the situation, as they have messaged me to check on things. I told them the truth and that I just needed to be alone to think about what to do next. They revealed that she has given them similar rants after they expressed concern for her. One even heard that she might be at risk of losing her job. She is definitely having some sort of mental break. From my understanding, she is now completely isolated. She is sprinting into a horrible, lonely life right now, and there's nothing I can do for her at this point. As selfish as it sounds, I'm just glad it's going to be behind me. Update 3. Things have kind of wrapped up, but there were some loose ends. I completely forgot to change my mailing address, which I should have done ASAP, so a couple of important things got sent to her house. I had to go pick them up, along with a few final items I wanted for my move that I had left there. She was being difficult and not responding to messages about them, so I had to go get them myself. I brought a mutual friend just in case. Thankfully, she was at least cooperative in letting me get my stuff, and it wasn't much of an issue. Everything else was though. She had a lot of nasty things to say. She told me she was already sleeping around, that she was happy now that I was gone, that she was finally free of me, and that she was going to be so much better off without me. She threw a lot of generic insults and horrible things you would commonly expect from a nasty breakup. And you know what? It was so obvious it was a rehearsed script from her family, and you could easily see how miserable she was. She looked like a mess, like she hadn't slept in days. The house was a mess. She wasn't even yelling, she sounded so exhausted and broken when she said it. She didn't even smile. Her face was just contorted in hate and anger. She was not the woman I knew anymore. That person was gone. When I was getting ready to leave, she was still going on. Fed up, I told her something along the lines of, "Congratulations, your friends are gone, your human shields are gone, your engagement is over, your support is gone, anyone who ever treated you like a decent human being is gone, and it's just you and your family now. I hope you're happy while they bleed you dry." It probably didn't go exactly like that, but something similar. She just stood there. Literally, she just stood there, looked at me with indifference, and walked away as I walked out the door. As we were leaving, our mutual friend Tiffany asked if I was okay. I reassured her that I was and that I'm just trying to get myself set up to go home next week. She also confirmed that she heard my ex did lose her job for not showing up for several days and basically ghosting them. They're going to try an intervention next week and asked if I could participate, but I'm not delaying my travel because, frankly, I just want a clean break. I know for a fact that if I stay involved, I'll only be witnessing a slow descent into either a complete breakdown or worse. I just can't do that. Despite all this, I'm actually excited for the future. I've realized that I ignored way too many red flags at the beginning. Even with everything that happened, I know I'll be doing well and I'm going to be alright. I expect this to be my final update. I'm still in town until Sunday afternoon, so something could happen while I'm still here, but if anything does, it won't be exciting. Update 4. I'm currently back in my home state with family, refamiliarizing myself with the area. I have 100% decided to stay here permanently and am starting the long process of looking for homes in the area. I've been doing great and hanging out with friends and family. A couple of mutual friends with my ex-fiancé have let me know what's been happening, and things finally seem to be getting better. The plan was for an intervention on Sunday, but Saturday night, after her family visited again, she called friends in an absolute manic state. It finally seems to have clicked how badly she screwed up. It was a full-blown panic attack and meltdown, which ended with her in the ER. Needless to say, she finally admitted how miserable she is and that she's messed up her life badly. Apparently, she tried calling me, but I had her blocked. She still has her job, and the info about her losing it was wrong, but she's hanging by a thread there. Her boss has basically ordered her to use her PTO for a few weeks to get her head on straight. She's a valuable asset there, and they are trying to make sure she can fix herself before they pull the plug on her. Her friend group is extremely close. My ex was someone who was a very helpful and supportive friend, so it makes sense that her group is going this far in trying to help her. However, it's an unspoken agreement that if she goes back to how she was again, they are all prepared to let her sink on her own. She's doing as well as can be expected. Her family has continued to harass her with calls and messages. They've tried showing up at her house but have been firmly redirected by friends and even neighbors. I hope she truly understands the kind of support system she has. As trashy family disputes usually go, her parents and brothers have taken it to Facebook. From what I heard, this has actually been in my ex's favor, as it has exposed their behavior to many more people and seems to have shut them up for a little. Finally, she had one of the mutuals pass a message to me. Essentially, it was her admitting all the horrible things she said to me were not true and were influenced by her family, as I knew they were. She apologized for how things ended and hoped we could one day reconnect. Sadly, I had to relay that we need to stay separated for good and that she just needs to focus on her healing. I told her I still care for her and wish her the best, but this needs to be our goodbye. The message seems to have been passed along, and her friends are helping her process that. She's got a long way to go, but I hope she can find her peace as I am finding mine.